Hello, good day everyone. We are the Group 7 and we are here to report of our topic which is The Lonely Soul by Raphael Armattoe, Ghana. The Lonely Soul by Raphael Armattoe is one that speaks to an emotion that almost every person on earth has felt at one time or another: loneliness. The speaker uses two characters to bring the deep effects of loneliness to life. He addresses these characters in his own mind and then he relates himself to them. Armattoe is a Ghanaian medical doctor, author, poet, and politician. He's born on August 12, 1913 at Kita, Ghana. He died on December 22, 1953 at Hamburg, Germany, and his nationality is Ghanaian and his education is University of Paris. Armattoe came to Europe at the age of 17 to continue his education. He studied in Germany, France, and Britain, coming to Northern Ireland shortly after receiving a medical qualification in Edinburgh in 1938. Dr. Armattoe spent over a decade working in Northern Ireland. He wrote a book on the golden age of West African civilization and issued numerous pamphlets. He spoke at the 1945 Pan-African Congress in Manchester, England, and the Scientific and Cultural Conference for World Peace in New York. Armattoe's family settled in Kumasi in what is now Ghana, where he set up a medical clinic and research center. Armattoe became active in both the pre-independence Ghana Congress Party, in opposition to Kwame Nkrumah and the Joint Togoland Congress. Dr. Armattoe traveled to New York in 1953 to address a United Nations Commission on the Togoland question and Togoland unification. On his way back to Kumasi, he visited the British Isles and Germany. Taken sick en route, Armattoe was treated in hospital in Hamburg and he died on December 21, 1953. Raphael Armattoe achievement. He was nominated for the 1949 Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology and was a campaigner for unification of British and French Togoland.
The Lonely Soul is a Raphael Armattoe poem and a genuine literature. Ghana is located in western parts of Africa. Ghana was colonized with many countries, resulting in a lot of dialects and languages. The poem goes down to form a single stanza with no rhyme scheme, and like most early 19th century African poems. Though most of the poem's lines are under the iambic meter, the poem lies under the qualitative type of verse beat, in which it does not measure the number of syllables, rather depends upon the duration of syllables, which can determine the amount of time used in pronunciation, and is very common with free-verse poem that consists of unmeasured lines. The poet inserted an example of simile, and this can be seen in lines 11 to 12, wherein the fall of sorrow was compared through the use of word like. With the fall down of arrows, the country roads mentioned in the poem symbolizes lonely paths. The poet also uses imagery, wherein they use the lines talking to herself and talking by herself to convey the image of a woman for being alone.
Ghanaian literature is a traditional based on oral literature, as most histories and stories were passed on by spoken word through song, poetry, and folktales. Theme. The poem revolves around loneliness and being alone. Loneliness is an unpleasant emotional response to perceived isolation. It is often associated with an unwanted lack of connection and intimacy. Being alone also leaves with so much sorrow and pain in the poem. The poet used the first person of point of view. The speaker was just simply narrating at first, talking about his experience in meeting a woman.
Plot summary. At first, the speaker talked about a woman he met. A woman just by herself, fooling herself just to conceal the pain she feels inside. So the speaker also talked about a man who is also with sorrow. And just like the woman, living with pain and loneliness brought by having no one and being alone. Poem analysis. This is a sad poem expressing a pathetic sense of loneliness. The poet begins the poem by introducing himself in the first person and goes on to tell a story about an experience he has had. It seems to be an experience of little importance, but the fact that the poet is telling the story obviously means it has a great effect on him. He tells us of an old woman he met on the road. He doesn't know her. He simply hears her talk, the many repetitions of words and phrases such as talking to herself. Road emphasizes how lonely she is. So the line 8 to 11, the poet turns his attention to us and addresses us as a child. This gives us the impression that the poet is of age and apparently has authority to speak on matters of life. He simply observes that no one really knows why a person will talk to himself on a long road. He explains that loneliness and sorrow are the reason why a man would talk alone, and same reasons applies to an old woman to keep the tears away. In the last line, he ironically comforts himself with the knowledge that he is not alone in his loneliness. The poet also reveals that loneliness is a result of people coping mechanism. In their bid to cope with sadness, they create loneliness, thus creating more sadness. Therefore, through his own experience and through his observations of others, the poet is able to reveal a life truth to his readers, that loneliness is not a solution to sadness.